So Ian, part of the deal tonight is to find out how you go about songwriting, your views on songwriting, your history of songwriting. When did you first start? When did you think that would be a good thing to do?
Well, originally I wasn't really into music. I was a child of the Apollo generation and football. And I thought music was a bit daft. Because whenever I turned the radio on, I heard things like, last night I heard my mama singing a song. Ooh-wee, chirpy, chirpy, cheep. And then I realised that, that actually wasn't music. I like it now. I like my version. And then I saw Mark Bolan and T-Rex on Top of the Pops in 1972 doing On Top of the Pops in 1972 doing
Friends say it's fine, friends say it's good. Everybody says it's just like Robin Hood.
And I thought, what's that, and it's easy to play as well, so that kind of made me think there's something going on there, and it's very easy to play that stuff. So I got me mum and dad to get me a guitar, and when you're learning to play the guitar, that's like the first kind of thing you do, is because it's all like so that's where it started.
Did you find it easy?
Yeah. That's why I'm still doing it, I mean, if Mark, if I would have found it hard, I'd be, very successful in the architecture industry. I think that the longevity comes from being able to write songs. And I was at school. I was always good at English and art, and rubbish at everything else. So I think kind of like the English language and being able to play the guitar, I was able to put songs together. It came quite easy.
Do you remember the first one you wrote?
Yeah.
Can you remember enough to play any of it?
It was called Transcendental Feedback. And, seeing as this is quite an important occasion, I don't want to bring anybody down, The title was good, It was in E, but that's all you get.
Was there a point where you think, actually, I'm quite good at this, I should do, I could do this for a living?
Well, people tell you that you don't actually think it, It's like you play for your parents or your relatives, and they go, oh, you're not bad, you should think about doing this. But they always say to you, but you've got to have something to fall back on. Which is a bit undermining, to say the least, because well, you're not bad, but you need something to fall back on, But I didn't really... I was pretty good at school, but because I was in a band, I was always late and a bit tired. So I went from being in like the top 5 of the class to sort of being in the next class down, So I think other people give you the encouragement to, they go, oh no, you should do this, and that's kind of how it worked with me.
We were talking about this earlier on. Was there a weight of expectation from you, Andy? Because, I've not been to Liverpool, I've been here for years, and I'm fed up with the Beatles already. There's so much, there's such a weight of expectation from that.
Well, being in Liverpool in the 70s, in the early 70s and the mid-70s, before you had bands like Echo and the Bunnymen and Teardrop Explodes and, all those sort of new wave bands that came through. Before that, there was just like pub rock bands, and anybody that, if you sent a tape off to London, you just, put a tape in an envelope and write London on it, and you send it off. And they'd always go, yeah, we've got a tape from some geezer from Liverpool. Yeah, it's not going to be Hey Jude, is it? You know what I mean? It was always kind of put up against the Beatles, which was unfair. Because, the Beatles were so great. The Beatles weren't just a band, they were a phenomenon. I mean, if you come from Hull, I guess you've got to compare yourself to the House Martins, you know, or it was just the House Martin, but no, there was a lot of expectation. but it's like, oh right, okay, so well, it's not as good as Sgt. Pepper, you know. So, but then when all these bands came through, like the Bunnymen and stuff, it was like, because I mean, I was in a band doing work in men's clubs, doing cover versions and doing quite well. And then I saw the Bunnymen on a local programme called What's On. They weren't tremendous musicians, but they had great charisma, and they weren't anything like any English bands. They were like influenced by the Velvet Underground and the Doors and things like that. So it made you think it's possible to do something that was completely un-Beatle-like, and then people accepted Liverpool in a different way, so it became a lot easier.
What kind of covers were you doing?
Nights in Prestatyn. I'm not, that's the truth. And this one was a big one. Salve Regina Mate Missoni Codie Vita duce nos pes nostra Salve, salve Regina Uncic Samono. We used to do the songs of the day. The people, you know, you go to a working man's club and you want to hear like the hits of the day. And it was a great education doing the working men's clubs, because I remember doing a gig in a Labour club in Leeds, and we were halfway through our big first, they don't call them sets in the cabaret world, they call them spots. So, right lads, your first spot is from 8:30 till 8:15, and then we have a break for the bingo. And then your second spot is mainly dance numbers, if you can do dance numbers. And stick to Quo and the Beatles, you know, that's what they like here. And we were in the middle of a set one night, spot. And they turned all the power off and started ringing the bell and saying, sorry lad, I've got to stop you there. The pie van's broken down on the Snake Pass. And Big George is all alone on his own out there, so we need someone to go and get him, otherwise there's going to be no pies tonight, you know. And that's what I used to do. And I miss those days.
You could probably still go back.
Well, it's always nice to know you've got something to fall back on.
Did playing that kind of stuff, though, help you in your writing, and that you presumably absorbed a lot of styles?
Well, you don't absorb them, you just nick them, you know. You tend to realise what it is that people are getting off on when you're playing the songs, and you realise that they like big choruses with sort of emotion and sentimental kind of things going on in them. And you think, well, if I'm going to write songs, then I guess I better do something like that, you know. So it was a great help.
Have you got an example of something that, you know, a song of yours that would illustrate that?
Just so
slick, wasn't it?
Well, we used to do a Bob Dylan song called Lay Lady Lay, which, you know, everybody knows. It's like...
Lay, lady, lay me across my big brass bed. Stay, Minnie, stay. Stay while the night is still ahead.
And I thought, well, you know, that they like that one. So I came up with something a bit later on and just kind of halved the chords and made it go. It's exactly the same chords. And I just turned it into Little Girl Lost, Little Girl Lost, Little Girl Lost. So I just basically robbed it. And now everybody knows. But don't tell anyone.
Is that quite common for songwriters, especially bigging out that you do that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that if you've got a song that you really like, you know, then the idea is instead of covering it and the artist that wrote it getting the royalties is to just kind of change it a little bit and do it yourself, you know. I mean, everybody does it. And it's not actually that difficult to do, you know. If you just change the chords slightly, change the lyrics and the melody just a little bit, you can get away with it. And people say to me, oh, don't you worry that, like, you might write a song that someone's going to say, well, that's a rip-off of something else, and you get sued. And it's like, well, if it is a rip-off and you do get sued, that means that loads of people are hearing it. So it must be on the radio, so I'll worry about it then. So it's like, yeah, Neil Diamond can have half my royalties, do you know what I mean? But he's got to get to hear it for it to get to that stage.
What usually starts you off in your writing?
Well, you've got nothing else to do. Well, you know, you've run out of cash. I tend to write songs when I'm extremely happy in a relationship or extremely miserable. They tend to be the songs that everybody likes, like total celebration of love or total, you know, like... Well, I can't forget this evening or your face as you were leaving. But I guess that's just the... I mean, that's what you want to hear when you get in at 2:30 on a Saturday night and you haven't pulled, you know what I mean? This is why we connect.
Words or music, then? Which tends to come first?
It varies, you know. Sometimes I get a really good title. Like I was trying to write a song a couple of years ago and I was sitting in the cellar just kind of fiddling about with the guitar and the telly was on upstairs and there was a Slade documentary on. Slade. And I wasn't watching it because I was taping it, but I could hear Noddy. I could hear Noddy upstairs giving it loads of that. And he went, yeah, the trouble with the rest of the band was they just wanted to be all things to everyone. And I went, all things to everyone, what a great title for a song. So I just went, all things to everyone, all things to everyone. There'll be no rest and the work ain't done till you're all things to everyone. I thought, nice one, Noddy, you know. Moment of inspiration. If you get a great title, that really spurs you on, you know. That's kind of how it works. I mean, it's so many different ways, you know. It happens so many different ways. But I like getting a great title and kind of explaining it to myself, you know.
Does that mean you're kind of working all the time? You're never really switching off?
Well, what tends to happen is if you sit down and say, I'm going to write a great song now, you'll be there for hours and it just won't really happen. But you get these moments of inspiration when you don't really want them, you know, like when you're doing something else, you know. Falling asleep is a time when it happens and you're going, oh yeah, great, you know, and then you go, oh my God, what about this? Wouldn't that be great? And you go, I'll remember it tomorrow, and then you freak out because you go, I'm not going to remember it, so you have to get up and start writing the song. I have a tape recorder by the side of my bed. Keith Richards gave that advice because apparently he was in a hotel room in Detroit and you know, I was just falling asleep, you know, and you know, I'd done too much of everything and I just got in bed and I just heard, you know, and if he would have yeah, you can clap that if you want, it's a great song. And if he would have fallen asleep and not done anything about it, he probably would have forgotten about it. So you got to make sure that you can capture it whenever and it always occurs when you're not expecting it.
Can it be hard work though? I mean, you're describing it as though it all arrives and it's all, you know, fairly simple. But I mean, presumably you also have to sweat over them as well and polish them.
Not for me.
We've been here before, haven't we?
Well, no, the serious answer to your question is that I don't ever try and write if I don't think that I can write anything. Like I say, if I just sit down and go, I've got to write the greatest song ever written. Nothing will happen, you know, because if you're forcing it, you've got to let it come to you, you know. There's so many different... I try and describe to people what it's like writing a song, and I equate it to sex, you know. It's like, well, how long do you spend on the breasts?
Radio 2, remember?
I did say breast. How long do you... You know, it's nebulous. There's no actual answer to it. You know?
Well, how about a song like, say, German Helmet circa 1943? Where did that come from?
Well, that came about because, I mean, that is actually a true story about, you know, when I was a kid and I was walking past a junk shop and I saw a German soldier's helmet and I was like, wow, I want that. And it was a big deal. And then I was trying to write a song and I came up with the title, German Soldier's Helmet, circa 1943. And I have been round a couple of record company offices and stuff since then, and I've gone, oh, where's my new stuff? Have a listen to that. And they've gone, all right, Ian, I'll give this a spin. I really like Love is a Wonderful Colour and Birds Fly, Whisper to a Scream, and I'm like, German Soldier's Helmet, circa 1943. Well, I don't think we're going to get a cover off Westlife for that, you know what I mean? But I'll just play a little bit of it.
When I was just a young boy, my mother said to me, would you like to come to town today and keep me company? We walked around department stores. She bought me lots of sweets. She bought the things a family needs, then bought herself a treat. She asked me if I wanted anything at all, as we walked past a junk shop just behind the old town hall. So I looked into the window, and displayed there to my glee was a German soldier's helmet circa 1943.
So you make sense of it, you know, and then that, you know, it's got a very unusual title, so people are kind of drawn to it, and it's like, yeah, I got away with that, you know.
How much of the you in your songs then is actually you, and how much of it is a version of you?
Well, the ones that people tend to really like tend to be the ones that are written from absolute personal experience, because something goes into those songs that aren't in ones that you're kind of doing just for the sake of it. I mean, I write songs that I think are, you know, really deep and meaningful, and then people go, yeah, that's all right. And then you write something that's a bit frivolous and a bit daft, and they prefer that one. But the ones that tend to last the longest are the ones that actually come from the heart, you know, good or bad, you know. I mean, you can write a song about anything, you know. It's. I mean, if has anybody got any lyrics that they've got lying around that they quite fancy hearing put into a song? Has anyone got like a couple of first couple of lines of a song or something?
I've just been sacked by me band.
I've just been sacked by me band. I've just been sacked by me band a million miles from Kenny. Have we got another line? I've just been sacked by me bird. I'm a long way from Kenny and I haven't got a penny. Well, that to me sounds very sort of down. So it'd probably be something like, maybe in the style of Neil Young, that one.
I've just been sacked by me bird, and I'm a long way from Kenny.
And then we need a chorus, but... I'm going to remember that one, actually. That sounds pretty good.
We'll have the tape. What's the oldest song that you're still performing? What's the one that you're still proudest of?
Well, I've been doing it a long time now, and the first couple of songs I wrote were really... I mean, I wrote a song when I was about 20 called Love is a Wonderful Colour. See what I mean?
Wasn't that a hit?
It was. It was. I mean, I definitely know it was a hit because I haven't had many. And that's actually talking about that thing of nicking somebody else's song. There's a great band called Aztec Camera, and they had a song called Pillar to Post, which went,
once I was happy in happy extremes.
I can't remember the rest of it, but I just remember going, and I went, I'll nick that. So I went,
when love calls me, I will be running swiftly to find out just what all the fuss is all about. Unrelentless, deep in the strangest feelings, believe me, love is full of wonderful color.
and it went to number 15 in the charts. Love is a wonderful colour. I don't even know what that means, but you know, I don't know what "Here Come Old Flat Top, He Got Mojo" filter means either. So you know.
Do you have to know? Do you have to know what it means, or does it just have to sound good?
Good question. Well, I mean, Bob Dylan. You know. I mean, I don't know what most of his stuff means, but it has this great sound to it. I mean, R.E.M. were another band like that. When R.E.M. first started, you couldn't actually hear the words, but they sounded like there was something. We did a gig in about 1983 in a place called The Venue in London, and R.E.M. came to see us. It was obviously before they broke big, and we were doing a cover of one of their songs called Radio Free Europe, which is off their first album, which goes...
Keep me out of country in the world. Listen me to point is what you heard. Put them to the herd. That this is a fortunate love. Straight off the band now.
And Michael Stipe came backstage after the gig, and he was standing in the corner with all his hair in his face, being really kind of shy. And I went, "Did you enjoy the show?" And he goes,
"Thank you very much for covering our song. But where did you get the lyrics from? Because there aren't any."
And I said, "Well, I knew that, so I just sung them phonetically." And he went,
"You sung them phonetically? Cool."
So I don't really think... If they sound good, that's one thing. If they mean something... I mean, there's so many different ways of doing it, but, you know... a lot of it's got to do with the sound of it and using the right word and the right rhyme at the right time, and just kind of... It's all part of the emotion of the song.
Do you find you get people coming up to you who have actually got your songs completely wrong and they've just misinterpreted them, but they work for them?
Yeah, usually members of my band. Because a lot of the time it's like, so what do you want me to do there? And I just go, just listen to the words, you know, just listen to what I'm doing, and emphasise it through that. And I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's just you've got to pick up on the vibe of the song and the lyric and what's going on at the moment. Yeah, but I like it if people misinterpret it. If somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh, I thought that song was great. It's obviously about blah, blah, blah," and you go, "Okay, yeah," you don't tell them it isn't, you know, because that spoils it for them. I mean, I think Like a Rolling Stone by Dylan is about one thing, but it's probably about something else, you know. And that's the beauty of it. The listener interprets it in their own way, and that makes it personal to them.
So on that kind of basis, then, how many Liverpool girls have come up to you and said, "That's me"?
The night is young. You're good. Oh, you're good. You're good. Well, I've had a couple that come up, but most of them sort of just think it's a bit of a caricature. And the thing is, if you have a kind of dig at somebody, they don't actually believe that it is true. You know, they don't think that you've nailed them. There's no way that, you know, if I said something about you and I went, "You're like this," and you went, "Oh, you so got me wrong." But that's the way that it's interpreted, you know. But Liverpool Girl was just like an affectionate tribute to the way Liverpool girls are, you know, and I think I nailed it. And it was a lot worse when the first draft of it was pretty damning. It was a bit. It wasn't honed. It wasn't honed, you know.
Do you find your work takes a lot of honing?
Well, usually you knock it about for a while, and then gradually as it starts taking shape, you kind of edit a few of the lyrics, and the melody usually stays the same and the format of it, but the lyrics usually get a bit sharper to, you know, hopefully make yourself sound a little bit more intellectual, because you always want to make yourself sound as clever as Elvis Costello, you know, but with using a lot less words.
Do you find that the songs change after you've played them to people? You know, once you've actually had an audience for them?
I think after you've played them live, you do tend to realise where the wheat and the chaff are. But then if I get people coming up to me and saying, "Oh, well, you know what you need to do with that, you need to do," I just leave it the same as it is, because, you know, I don't think that the songwriter's here to necessarily please their audience per se. I think they're there to challenge them. And if you kind of go along with what the audience wants, I think that the audience tends to leave you behind. You've always got to keep them guessing. You've got to please them and excite them. But at the same time, you've always got to kind of stay one step ahead of them, so they're not quite sure what you're going to do next, you know, like this.
Well, I'll leave you to it, I think. Ian, thank you so much. It's been fantastic. Play some of your songs.